So today we're talking about fairy tales and mythology. And the reason why is because these are interesting stories that have been distilled over thousands of years. And people continue to tell fairy tales and mythological stories because they tell us about the human experience. They tell us about life and the human condition. And a lot of these stories involve a dragon or a beast or some looming presence that must be confronted. And what the dragon, where the dragon lives is often in the dark. Dragons live in caves, they live in dungeons, they live in the cellar. Dragons hide in places we prefer not to go. And dragons often hoard treasure. They hoard treasure that they can't even spend or use. Dragons don't go to the store and spend money. They don't drink out of silver chalices, for example. So dragons represent what we fear the most. And what's embedded in the fear is what we most need to release or confront or reveal to ourselves, what we most need to find. So slaying the dragon frees the treasure. Slaying the dragon or taming the beast releases the treasure for our use. And again, what we most want is found where we least want to look. So I'll tell a story about a dragon I confronted in my life, and that was the idea of being alone. I was raised in a big family. My older brother is just 14 months older than me, and we were very close growing up. And then I had a bunch of younger siblings that I was often in charge of. And the neighborhood kids played at our house. Sometimes we had people come to live with us, relatives or people from church. So I was surrounded by a herd, a pack. We were like an amoeba whenever we went anywhere. I just was always in a group. I was just used to being part of a group. So the way that manifested in my life is that I started a relationship with my high school sweetheart that lasted for 3 years. And then I went from one relationship to the other, sometimes overlapping, so that by the time I was 27, I was facing my 4th breakup. And I was thinking, life just isn't working for me. This is not working. Also, my mom was a very powerful presence, still is a presence in my life, but my mom's a very powerful person. And so when I was 27, I started seeing my first therapist. She recommended the book Codependent No More, which I read and benefited from. And so that was just a beginning of reordering my life, trying to reorganize my life. I stayed really busy. You know, I was surrounded by projects and activities and people. I hosted parties. I was in groups. I was busy, you know. So that was a dragon that I confronted, is this idea that I could be alone. You know, when I was a younger person, the idea of like going to a restaurant or, you know, doing something alone was just so foreign to me. It just didn't compute. And the treasure is that now I spend a lot of time by myself, but I rarely feel alone. When I'm really aligned and connected, I feel like I'm part of a cosmic party. I feel like I'm part of a cosmic party of love, just being surrounded and supported and held up in love. So modern tales, we still tell these mythological types of stories. If you look at a list of the 20 most watched movies of all time, you see things like Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Lord of the Rings, Wizard of Oz, Harry Potter movies. So there are stories about the hero's journey, stories about people confronting a beast, slaying a dragon, confronting a fear, and then progressing into harmony and well-being. In the spiritual journey, a lot of traditions talk about facing the everything nothing or the void. And it's that moment of expansiveness, It's that peace that passes all understanding. It's a moment of clarity without noise. Saint Teresa of Avila was a Christian mystic in the 15th century, and she described it, or in the 1500s, and she described it as two candle flames. When they're held together, the two flames become one flame. So it's a peak experience. And again, a lot of traditions call it facing the everything nothing or the void, because even for just a few seconds, the chatter stops, the mind chatter ceases. And these ideas, the stories of who we think we are, fall away. So in my life, I was able to visit that space, but I didn't know how to return there consciously. I would just, have a peak experience and then sort of fall back into my regular normal life. But I remember a distinct experience in 2011. I was just by myself. I was contemplating life and humanity and God and me and all of it. And I just had that joy, that clarity, that moment of, people say, that you know that you know that you know. It was just an openness, an expansiveness, just a clear understanding of eternity. So a year later, after that, I found unity. I started taking metaphysics classes pretty much right away. I started taking the spiritual education and enrichment classes, and then started on the path to becoming a minister. So from 2012, first finding unity, to now 2020, I've been associate minister at Unity of Houston for a year and a half. So the key step, we have those peak experiences where we slay the dragon, we tame the beast, we confront the everything, nothing, or the void. And those are beautiful peak experiences. And the key step is what happens after that. It's the reassembly process. And this is what the teacher Nathaniel Newby calls the reassembly process. So here's what happens. We have that breakthrough experience that where we know that I am not my body, I am not my stories, I am not my self-talk, I'm not my ego, I am not these inputs that I accepted from other people. So it's a moment of complete non-attachment. And you can think of that moment as the disassembly of our human construct. And the opportunity is that that key step is that we can consciously reassemble ourselves. We can consciously choose, we can consciously reassemble our ego, our personality, our self-talk, our self-image. We can unlearn and release the baggage and everything that's not serving us. So a quick key question is, who are you really? Now, I love that in our Sunday school with adults class, people are telling their stories. They're talking about their spiritual adventures and their progression and those moments of confronting the fear, transforming their lives and facing the unknown and thriving. So really thank you for sharing your stories. And I want to leave you with a quote from Rabia, who was a mystic poet in the 700s. And she said, I was born when all I once feared, I could love. I was born when all I once feared, I could love. Thank you.